is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward, never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back.
The Hit Back with Nahaja Black is sponsored by Scotiabank, CJ Atlantic, Baja Retreat and Spa, Atlantis Paradise Island, and J.S. Johnson.
Good afternoon, Bahamas, and welcome to the Hit Back. I'm your host, Nahaja Black. It is a beautiful day here in the 242. I hope that you are doing well, taking care of yourself, and living your best life today. Well, listen, it's a interesting day today for sure. I think one of the things that I've had an interesting day today. A lot of conversation. I ran into a few people while out today. Ran into my local pharmacist. Great lady out here at community pharmacy. And you know what she said she's interested in? Nahaja, help me understand this VAT thing. I ran my mother by her today, and she had grievances with NIB. That was interesting today, but I can touch that. And then this whole thing with VAT. That was the main thing of the three stops, even, visiting a friend, a physician friend, VAT, this discussion on VAT. And, I found that with every answer, with every question on it, my answer was the same. And my answer was, I really don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. And that is concerning, right? I've tried to reach out to anyone within government who can give me an answer, because I need clarity on it, right? Because it does look like it's a form of sleight of hand, right? We take away and we give. How does this affect, in the words of my good friend and I trusted advisor, Rupert Pinder, economist, how does this affect aggregate consumption, right? How does this affect the way we consume, what we consume? The rate, that's what we really talk about, the rate of consumption. When you have inflationary pressures, when we have things such as, shipping woes looming, how does that change anything? And plus, most of the items that we talk about in terms of food items are not under price control's watch. Now, a promise made and a promise kept. This would be the Progressive Liberal Party, so this administration stance is that we made a promise to drop it to 10%, and we've kept this promise. And okay, you know what? I hear that and I support that. And I think, first of all, congratulations on that. Congratulations on it. But it has to, line up and make sense. So today that has been my struggle today. Not just VAT. Because I like the pensioners thing. I thought that was very good, very smart, very savvy. Do that, get your pensioners there. Noticing there's a particular block that they're working on, right? So you got your public service pensioners. I was thoroughly surprised by the lack of pension that public service workers tend to have. $500 is what you're getting a month. Wow, they should probably be getting the $500 lump sum too, with persons who are on COVID unemployment assistance. That's pretty low. And it brings all kinds of questions into the structure of Social Security. What is our Social Security net? When do we repay NIB? So there's a tons more in terms of conversation just on the realities of some folks post-retirement. But yet we bring back some to give them six-figure salaries. But these said we just get rid of it. That's not the show. So there was that. I noticed that there's a block. You have your public service pensioners. Then you have the rest, a good chunk of the public service who are getting their remittances. right? So they're getting paid. That's a good block. That is a strong contingent. But this is at the beginning. So you need these sort of things, good deeds, to continue on in your 5-year tenure. You have, what is the other group? Then you have the reduction in VAT, but we now know bread basket items will be increasing in VAT because it moves from 0 to 10. I've reread what the Prime Minister said yesterday with regard to their strategy for why this is something that will make sense. And I've worked in my mind their explanation. What I don't see are the numbers that will corroborate this trajectory, because there are too many variables, right? There are too many variables with the reduction from 0 to move bread basket items. And it's a small contingent, right? But we go to the store and we purchase these items. And this was something that was important to us when it happened, right? We wanted the 0 VAT rating on bread basket items. And I must just totally say this. I missed the press briefing today. I did see that Mr. Halkitis, the Minister of Economics and Economics, I can't even remember the title of the ministry right now, or the department. I can't remember the title. So I missed it. I tried to get him on today. Haven't gotten a response, by the way. Getting a lot of that. Only Glennis Hannah Martin responds to my messages. Well, we digress. Anyhow, I'm sitting in limbo here, right? We like the idea of a reduction in taxes. I think we all do. I don't know anybody who's not going to be excited about a reduction in taxes. I think we all get excited and say, hey, less tax. But see, with taxing, and it has to make sense, because there's some nuances with taxing. Someone says do corporate tax. Nobody's been talking about capital gains tax, corporate tax. Well, even if you talk about capital gains tax, Bahamians still, in by and large, can't even do, real investments outside of country. It all has to go through a local broker. But again, so I'm looking at this tax system, this tax arrangement from 12% to 10%, and I'm left with more questions than answers. And see, for me, that's a challenge, because these were the questions I was asking at the beginning. All right, and I really didn't think that it was a wise campaign promise to have unless you can truly say where the stimulus would come in. Because when you reduce tax, you're trying to stimulate spending, right? You're trying to not stimulate savings, stimulate spending. You're trying to create this move for consumerism leading into the holidays, but we now know this isn't until January 2022, right? So we're looking to see where is the stimulating action, this increase in consumption, considering that there are inflationary pressures that are across the whole world and ours. I had a friend of mine say last night, Nahaja, the only things that are inflation proof at this point is cryptocurrency. Congratulations to everybody who has the Shiba Inu coin. You're having a great, 2 weeks. So I'm stumped. And this is where math comes in. And I can't wait for the budgetary debate, this debate on this budget or on the supplemental budget, on how will this work? What is the forecast? What did they see? Again, I missed the speech by Mr. Halkitis today, so perhaps he shared that information, right? Perhaps he shared where they see this level of increase. I had one economist tell me that, listen, a 2% reduction in VAT really helps big ticket purchases more so than smaller ticket purchases. How do we ensure that price control, but since most of the food items are not under the purview of price control, the regulation, the strong arming of price control, how do we ensure that the vendor, the merchant, doesn't just take the difference, doesn't just spread it across? These are reasonable questions I think that we should ask because it sounds good, but in premise, and I'm very curious, to find out where the stimulating action comes. Why is this important? I'll tell you. Because when we are looking for every citizen, you got to get out your party colors, get out of your party colors and ask these questions, because I want to know the answer to them. And I'm sure, someone says these are real concerns, and you are right. This VAT solution is a sleight of hand. Perhaps it is. but I need to know the numbers. I need to know how this works, right? How does this work, right? How will this work? We're in a very precarious financial time. The government, the new administration has stated, so the prime minister has stated as much, that we need to be more fiscally prudent, more judicious with our spending. And what we haven't heard yet is the great economic get out of the doldrum plan. We've heard a few things that are staples. This was said even in the former administration. We need to go ahead and get vaccinated. We need to get vaccinated so that the country can be in a healthier position, so that we can market ourselves to the world. Mind you, there are still parts of the world which are boasting at an 80% vaccination rate and are in the fourth wave. So I do not believe that the vaccine is the silver bullet that the government is talking about. We need to be talking more about outpatient care as well before you get into the hospital. But that is one where we're saying, okay, we need to find out how do we get past this COVID thing? How do we get past this COVID thing? How do we then get more people to work? Because really, reduction in taxes doesn't work out if people are still struggling to be employed. We need employment. So then now, okay, but if we get vaccinated, we can boast about this vaccination and the rest of the world will come to us. That is maybe that's the angle. But we now see too that the government is reaching out to our Asian brothers and sisters, our Chinese brothers and sisters, for investment capital or investment interest. Now, mind you, fine. I think there is a play if we're talking about foreign relations. How do you leverage the United States and China so that you can get an either or, so that you can get the best deals from both of them that benefits the people and not leveraging our natural resources, not leveraging our land and selling out our land, but rather leasing land and not selling land. There are opportunities here, since we know the United States is not keen on China being in their backyard, and China would love to be in the United States' backyard and also have access to beaches or harbors by which they can trade and continue in this, what do they call it? What is the name of it? It's a Golden Belt initiative that they have. Someone please remind me of what it is. And Monique says a good point. What about the European market? There is opportunities here, but we haven't heard it. I am waiting for something more. I don't see the 10% being the stimulating aspect that they're thinking, unless we're talking big ticket items, right? You're buying land. If you're buying land, the difference between 10% and 12% is some good money, $100,000 versus if you're buying $100,000 plot of land, you're not spending 12% anymore with that on taxes. It's not $12,000. You're spending now $10,000. That's great. That's a good difference in our ticket price. But to the cashier, that's where I'm interested. So I don't want a sleight of hand. I need numbers. I need to understand, what are the projections you're seeing? Why do you think this works? Is this a promise that is being, it's not the Silk Road Initiative, Monte. It was something else, something and Belt initiative by the Chinese. Someone remind me of what it is. But if you look at what is, I'm wondering, are we going backwards? This is a promise that now has to be kept. And so we are reverse engineering the promise. All right. Someone said, based on, and that's why I'm going to have him on, Gowan Bowe is going to be joining me. He said, based on reports explained by Mr. Bowe, low-income persons purchase between 25 to 35% of their food items from bread basket, which means the other 65 purchases, they save the 2%. Yes, and that's good. But now we need to catch, is there a raise of 10%? What is the overall receipt cost going to look like? And that's where I'm looking forward for Gowan Bowe to explain for me as well. Apart from anything else, ladies and gentlemen, I think for me, and I think for all of us, I am one who wants to know where we're going, right? China Belt and Road Initiative. That's it. That's it. It's the China Belt and Road Initiative. That's the name of it. And I would love to know how we're going to leverage. I don't know if y'all noticed this, just as a side note. Has anyone noticed that the Chinese ambassador, we're seeing a bit more of her. China's given us the greenhouses, and then at the same time, you're seeing more of the U.S.'s representative out and about making a call. I think that now we're in a space and place where we're seeing these entities wanting to woo us. How do you leverage that relationship so that we get the best for the Bahamian people? But I'm at a place now, ladies and gentlemen, where I am far more interested in the direction of the economy. I'm not moved by, because every government comes in with, y'all can't tell me $1 billion is some crazy money now. And I'm happy Gowan is going to be joining us. Gowan Bowe, Group CEO of Fidelity Bank and Trust. So I'm looking forward to having him on because, he and I were chatting last night and he said, Nahaja, you got it wrong. I like when someone tells me I have something wrong because that means I could learn something today. So I'm curious as to what all of this means fiscally, because if it doesn't, I'm not into politics. We don't have time for that anymore. That season and over, election over. You win, lost, whatever, we're still all in the country. Unless you got a dual citizenship passport, the buck stops here. We have to get it together. That's the goal. That's number one. So we need to find out what this means. And we need to know, okay, when we're talking about, this debt servicing, right? How is that possible? How are we going to service our debt? How are we able to afford some of the initiatives? And I thought the payouts for the pension and even for the lump sum were pretty cheap. I didn't think they were that expensive. The lump sum, though, we know is not a return on investment item. That is something you do out of the kindness of your heart. So there's no return on investment other than, we say, probably spending into your coffers. But if you have a little less, do you save it? How does that work? I don't think the government's looking for it as a return for something that stimulates, just to give people some hope. But the pension thing is a good move. I got questions. Let's get some answers. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, CEO of Fidelity Bank and Trust, Mr. Gowan Bowe, is taking the time to say he will join us. Monique says, I want to see the money sharing into the poor black man's hands. Fred said, it's simple logic. The chap that earned $100,000 yearly also take advantage of the breadbasket savings. Was that fair? It's savings is savings, man. I would like to save on my breadbasket items. Why are you trying to judge? Now, mind you, I don't make $100,000, but I understand that there is they say that it's going to target. This is what the government said, that they're going to target more initiatives that directly impact those who don't have. Who's going to, mouth can say anything. I need to see that too. Let's see what happens. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM.
You have a new text message from Scotia.
Scotiabank is adding text messaging to its communication channels to keep customers updated in quicker and safer ways. As of November 4th, Scotiabank will be using text messaging to provide notifications on the minimum payment required for your credit card and due dates. Customers may continue to access their credit card statements on Scotia Online or through our mobile banking app. Learn more by contacting customer care-bahamas at scotiabank.com or call 356-1697.
We are working to protect our country, our people, and our livelihoods so that we can move forward. The vaccine is safe. The vaccine is easy. The vaccine is essential for our recovery. If we want to rebuild our economy, if we want to get back to our jobs, if we want to get back to our lives, our families, we must do this together.
What does Christmas mean to you? What about making a loved one's face smile bright or driving your own car? CIBC First Caribbean gives you up to 100% financing on auto loans. Apply online and let our auto financing take you places this Christmas. Visit CIBCFCIB.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
We're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja, Black Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Someone asked a question. Hey, everybody, is the pension increase, is that for everyone or only for government persons? It's a public service pension increase. So unfortunately, my mind in that number, and boy, she was watching. She had her eyes open. Someone says, I try to figure out how, someone say, how with all of these appearances, my guest still has this big title of a job, wondering how he's able to fit it all in. And that's why I love him, because he's able to fit it in for the sake of the people. Gowan Bose, CEO of Fidelity Bank and Trust. How are you, my friend?
Not too bad, Nahaja. Tell the person who asked that question is sometimes waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So that's how you're able to do so.
Listen, and they don't know you moved straight from out of a meeting into this one. So thank you so very much. I appreciate the time. All right, Gowan. So I'm so happy. I know that you've been trying to help us all around the country really understand some of what was presented from the best of your knowledge, from what you read and understood from the contribution of the Prime Minister yesterday. Let's start with what I've been experiencing all day. The one question. Nahaja, what do you think about this VAT decrease, but it's going up in essence on our bread basket items? Folks want to know the deal. They just want to know, will I be paying more on a regular basis on my receipt? And that's what they really want to get at.
And, I think that's a valid question and a fair question, but it is unfair to look at only one specific item in relation to that. And what I mean by that is, we need to start by understanding the actual tax system in the Bahamas. And it is a regressive tax system. And what is meant by that is a greater burden of the tax is placed on the lower income earners, because our system is based on consumption. And so the less you earn, you are going to consume nearly all of what you earn. The more you earn, the greater the capacity to save, invest, and do other elements, but not completely consuming what it is you earn. So we have an inequitable distribution of the tax burden starting on that premise, meaning that, and you used the 100,000 mark, and I know I've used that generally, but if I have an individual who earns 100,000, I have an individual that earns 10,000, just keeping the numbers very simple. And the person who earns 100,000, how much is it that he can really consume? The person who owns 10,000, by the time he's paying rent, food, and all the gas and all the services, he's probably consuming the vast majority of his earnings, right? And so if you look at the person who's earning 100,000, he's not going to be consuming anywhere near the majority of his earnings. He can by luxury, etc., but it's not, an expectation that he will. So if we look at and assume the 10,000 individual does spend it all on consumption in terms of his food, electricity, water bills, and the others, then ultimately our tax rate in the country on goods, services, which is customs duty and VAT, is about an average, going back about 5 years when we did the economic study, about 40%. So he's paying, out of the 10,000 he spends, probably 4,000. Let's say the guy who makes $100,000, let's say he even spends double. He spends 20,000. And if he is charged that same 40%, he's spending 8,000. But the 8,000 is out of 100,000. Mm-hmm. So what's his effective tax rate? Is 8%. And the guy who's earning 10, his effective tax rate was 40. So now when we come to the VAT conversation, when we impose or we implement exemption zero rating, the question is the person who's already paying less as an effective tax rate equally as entitled to subvention or, I'm going to say, support from the government? And that's a very basic question. And it's not being discriminatory. It's simply saying, well, was he paying his fair share based on the system that we have in place? So I'm not saying if it was an income-based system and all were paying 10%, we would be okay. Mm-hmm. But it's not. It's consumption. So the exemptions and the zero rating that were introduced back in 2018, although well-meaning, really benefited the individual who did not need the benefit, because it was trying to target the individual that did need the benefit. And it is well recognized that that's an inefficient way of doing so, because you've basically allowed revenue leakage from the person who can afford it and who can make the payments. And I think it's important that we pause here to say the country's financial circumstances didn't change on September 16th, right? And they didn't come about in 2017 or in 2021. They have accumulated. So our debt levels, our deficit spending, those elements are almost embedded practices, unfortunately, that we have to reverse. So if we as the people allowed it to happen, and some may say, well, I was never no politician, I was never no MP, no cabinet minister. We allowed it to happen because we didn't stand against it. And so if that is the case, we borrowed, whether we agree with how it was borrowed or not, we as a country borrowed and we have to pay it back. So the question is, do I want to more evenly distribute the burden of paying it back based on the capacity to pay? Or do I want to have the special interest groups that may benefit? And so until we reform tax overall to where it is based on your ability to pay, we have to look at the system we have. And as I said, on those exemptions, the persons who least needed it benefited and probably benefited more. And in reality, you probably even had corporate entities that benefited without even thinking of it directly, meaning that bread basket items includes bread. So when we think about restaurants, we think about food distributors that are processing and delivering. When they were acquiring certain of these items, they would have qualified as being bread basket, and so they weren't. And the question people will have is when you go to other business establishments that may use some of these bread basket items in the items that they sell, did you see a decrease in the price of those items?
No.
When it came about in 2018. So when we put all of that together, it may sound long-winded, but yes, to everyone's bill, naturally, if you had where you was paying 0% on a portion of your consumption, and it's now going to be charged 10%, let's not be disingenuous. Yes, it is going to increase your bill. The reality is, though, it is going to increase the bill of everyone, which means that persons who really did not need the benefit and should have been contributing more in the first instance will now be paying more. And it is incumbent upon the government in their financial systems to redirect those surplus resources to the persons who truly will feel this increase. But let me put some of the numbers in an easy context, just so you understand how inefficient the VAT exemption and zero rating was. A person who had $100 that they were spending in the grocery store pre-2018, it was 7.5%, everything was VATable, they would have paid $7.50. The individual after 2018, when we move forward and we say, and the grocers have been sharing more of the statistics, that about 40% of the consumption is bread basket in the lower income earners. Overall, it's actually only 20%. So that meant that the 80% on average went from 7.5 to 12. But let's just think about the individual that may be on the margins who consumes most of his consumption because he has a lower income, or she. Then they were in a position where they would spend 40% of bread basket items. Those went to zero. But 60% of $100 is $60. It was previously 7.5, it's now 12%. 6 times 12 is $7.20. So the pre-exemption and zero rating, let me use the right term. Pre-zero rating and post-zero rating really wasn't given any significant benefit back to the individual who was on the margin. The person who could afford it got a benefit that they didn't even really recognize in their food bill, etc. And so where we were targeting or hoping to help the small man, as we use that term, that's the wrong term. I use the term that is the person who is the lower income earner, so that we get to where we stop using undignified terms in that ones, right? So from that perspective, when we now move back to that same $100, and yes, we move from exemptions on 40% to now 100% of it being at 10%, yes, it is going to be $10 instead of the $7.50. But it goes back to what I'm saying is now I am collecting money from all parties and I can redirect the resources more targeted and more specific to the individuals. And the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance made that statement in terms of saying the conditional cash transfer program. Now, there can be the question, okay, how quickly are you going to get this program up and running? Are you going to have it as an efficient and effective program in terms of use of technology to ensure that there's limited amount of fraud, etc.? But it is putting us in a stronger position. And I think we sometimes go into what I'm going to call a fairyland, right? And what I mean by that is if we owe money and we make a decision that is going to reduce the revenue necessary to pay back that money, then we are going to be borrowing more money, right? We're going to be incurring more costs. So if we believe that any responsible government is going to make a decision that actually hurts the revenues, yes, it may feel good to you in your individual pocket for the second. But when you now see the country's financial circumstances continue to deteriorate, we're in a worse situation. And I always say this much, it's very basic. If you say government should charge you less, are you asking less of government? Are you willing to pay more for government as it relates to the services that they provide? And we become very selfish in our mindset because we think very individualistically. And as long as my pocket in better shape, then I don't care about the country, but we are the country. And so I think that it is unfair and incorrect to look at the announcement on VAT in and of itself to say, okay, that is something that is directly going to increase the cost to those who are amongst us, the lower earners, because the government said that they were going to take steps to ensure that that was not the case. It's unfair to say, well, ultimately this was a sleight of hand. To me, that's a question you have to raise with government. And what you would really want to say is, okay, should it have announced that it would be removing the zero rating and the exemptions? Well, that's to me the difference between politicians and myself. Yes, that would have been something I would have said from the very beginning. And I would have sat and spoken about this as I'm doing now from the very beginning. To say that until I can create the regressive nature of the tax system, I need the upper income earners to pay at least their fair share. I should not be giving them any benefit that I am giving to the person who's on the margin. And so we have to look at this in that context and then say that, okay, the person who's on the margin, what we want to do is get them elevated. So what are the programs government is going to initiate to grow the economy, to upskill these persons who have found it challenging in order to find income that's going to put them above the minimum wage level? And how do we, if you will, uplift the lives of all without, like I say, segregating, unfortunately, or unintentionally? And to be honest, when you looked, and this is a very dangerous scenario that we don't always see, that if we get into this trying to target benefits to a particular lower class, did we not make everything else more expensive for them? Because it went from 7.5 to 12.
That's right.
And so did you actually pigeonhole them into only ever being able to consume breadbasket items? Suppose they actually looked at it and said, well, I want to give my child an ice cream for getting an A in school. But what previously was 7.5% tax on it went up to 12% tax. Am I actually creating greater class separation, greater separation in the have and the have-nots by having these varying rates? Because in order to compensate for something I tried to implement to benefit a particular class, I actually unintentionally, like I said, and maybe not with full wisdom, went and increased the cost of everything else. And so when we look at being our brother's keeper, we have to look at the country's circumstances and say, well, we need to make sure that we are running a prudent budget. We've been running deficits since independence, so it ain't been prudent, no matter how you slice and dice. That ain't started by the previous administration or the administration
it's been around.
or the administration before that. This is from independence. And so ultimately, we have to pay the piper. And so there's going to be pain. We're just looking for the least painful avenue to say, well, okay, all we're trying to do is ensure that the burden is as equitably distributed as it possibly can. And then we use any surpluses from that equitable distribution to reallocate and get back to individuals.
Gowan Bowe, CEO of Fidelity Bank and Trust. Let me ask you this, Gowan. You know, I and thank you. First of all, thank you. Excellent explanation, and you broke it all the way down. And I think almost all of us totally got what you were trying to and what you said. Now, then it comes to what is this seen, and based on your analysis or based on the speech, what do you gather from it? Is this reduction in VAT hopeful in some form of consumer spending to increase consumer spending? Do you see it, or do you believe that the government views it as just something that will relieve some pressure, but not necessarily as a form of stimulus? How would you view this? And then my other part of question will go into, should we then go into maybe something far more equitable as income tax? But let's go with the first one.
The first one is, I think that question is best directed at the policymakers. But when I step back and say, well, what is it that we needed to do? And the question is, did we achieve it? We needed to send a very strong signal to our creditors, persons who lend money to us, that we're not going to make decisions that are going to worsen our financial circumstances. So that's the first one. So when we spoke about a VAT decrease, that may have been in part a part of an election electioneering. But when we get into the seat and we see the realities, we're now pausing and saying, well, okay, let's make sure that we're not doing something that is going to hinder or hurt our fiscal performance as it currently stands. That's the first thing. So it's a signal in terms of the message we send to not the people who we see, the rah-rah people, the people who are going to be assessing and determining whether we succeed or fail in terms of our fiscal affairs. The second thing is, it is well recognized that as you lower taxes, you leave a greater amount of money in the pockets of the private sector, which allows for a greater amount of investment and consumption. And I want to say, I purposely said investment and consumption, because consumption in and of itself doesn't help growth in the economy if it doesn't stimulate expansion. And so when more money is left in the hands of the private sector, the intent is that, and so private sector being businesses and individuals, the intent is that that money is going to be deployed in order to expand the economic pie. And so, yes, if you're saying that I'm reducing the cost overall from 12% to 10% on items that were previously being charged 12%, and I'm increasing the rate on some of the items that I was previously not charging on, yes, there's a slight increase, but there's an increase in a manner that says, one, there's a distribution issue that we already touched on. Secondly, for the person who was spending more at the 12% level, ideally the rate is now lower, and it is a simplified system that says we shouldn't have the leakages, right? I saw, and I only could call it a truly uninformed commentary, and I'm not on social media, but I saw a comment that was saying that the reason there was a deterioration in the compliance rate with VAT is because of the business failures. Well, compliance has nothing to do with a business success or failure. If you are a business that's operating, you either comply or you don't comply. And so the compliance rate, when introduction of exemption, zero rating, leads to differences in opinion on interpretations of what is included, not included. It leads to loopholes as it relates to saying, well, what was probably not intended, potentially being now included. And it leads to outright deception. Persons who are saying, well, the more complicated it becomes, the more I have a chance to actually deceive when I'm submitting. So when I simplify the tax system and I say, well, I remove these elements that can lead to misinterpretations, loopholes, and actual fraud, then the compliance rate increases not because people have chosen to, but because the validation exercise becomes so much easier. That if I know everything that you sell is supposed to be vatable, then I'm not going to get into whether or not you paid me the right amount of VAT as a VAT payer.
Yeah.
Because I'm just multiplying one item or one total by a percentage. And that allowing there to be greater compliance levels then also removes the tax leakages, which then comes back to us, the very consumers, in the form of additional taxes. So we always talk about, well, we want no increases in taxes, collect the money that you have. Well, we have to appreciate that sometimes the lack of collection is due to the system that we are actually running.
Making it far more difficult.
Because we allow for it. And so if we simplify it and we make it very easy and we say, look, this isn't no algebra. Well, this is algebra as opposed to quadratic equations and calculus, right? So everyone has a big calculator that has the big buttons on it. We don't need all of the square brackets and the y squared. We only need the times button and the equal button, right? And so as we simplify that, then compliance goes up because the actual enforcement can be ratcheted up, and then we have greater collection of the monies that we have. So to answer your question, again, may have been a sort of a long-winded one. The statement that was made, you would have to, the politicians have to, justify why they were going at it. Yes, there's an expectation that when I lower rates, it increases the consumption and investment, and I don't want to miss that. When I simplify a system, it increases compliance and enforcement. And I can send a signal to say that the decisions I am making are fiscally responsible. And one of the things that we have to wait and see, and this is one, so I don't have the answers, but they refer to an equilibrium model. And so for the man on the street, they created one black box that say when I put some things in, some things come out. But did they make sense? And to the educated observer, and when I use the word educated in that one, educated in the particular field, the persons who are financial can look at it and say, okay, you know what? You made a decision based on empirical evidence, as opposed to putting your finger in there and saying, boy, I think this sounds good. I hope this work out, and let's go for it, right? Yeah. You've actually made a sound judgment that said, okay, I've put it through a model. I don't have a crystal ball. It doesn't mean everything is going to play out the way the model does, because the world is not static. So it doesn't mean that everything stands still when I change a particular variable. But at least if I use the actual modeling to say, I have projections that say this is what is supposed to happen, then I can justify the basis of my decision. And that was referenced. Now, how quickly that gets publicized, how quickly that gets shared in a manner that people can understand and see the outputs, etc. I remember when we did the VAT initial one as the private sector, the reports were shared and put onto the website, and we went and did road shows, and we were all about talking about it, but we showed what did the model tell us about inflation. So everyone's saying, oh man, 7.5%, inflation going up 7.5%. No, it didn't. By modeling, it only went up 4% in the initial period and then leveled back off. And you know what? The experience was very similar to what that was modeled. And so ultimately, I think to your point, let's set aside the politics. I leave that to the politicians. But if we boil it down in terms of the principles that exist, the announcement were not ones that run afoul of principles of equity, that run afoul of stimulus, and run afoul of fiscal responsibility.
Yeah. Gowan Bowe, CEO of Fidelity Bank and Trust, joining us. We're talking about VAT, and Bowe was presented. And if you've missed any part of his presentation, you've missed too much. So you can always go back to Facebook and YouTube and listen to the show again. Don't forget, subscribe, like, share, all of that good stuff. Gowan, before you go, let's talk quickly about this. Should we, I know, listen, when we talked about the increase, and even from when we talked about the implementation as a whole, a discussion of VAT, we always knew that it came with its levels of inequity, like you mentioned, even with zero rating and all of this stuff, that some will benefit who don't necessarily need this break. And the Prime Minister said, hey, listen, instead, there is a preference for targeted relief, such as conditional cash transfer programs. My government is committed to increasing direct cash transfers to families who need the support with the reintroduction of the RISE program, about which you will hear more in detail. So that was something where you talk about targeted. But with all of that said, though, VAT is still regressive, yes? VAT still somehow finds its way of making those who have less pay more of a share out of their less than those who have more. You are the CEO of a bank. You are the CEO within corporate society. How do you view income tax? Will you be open to it? Should we move now past this VAT thing and do income tax?
Nahaja, anyone who's listened to me in my rantings, if I call them that, will know that I'm actually a big proponent of progressive taxation, and that is income tax. Because whilst I am capitalistic at heart, I believe that investment, ingenuity, creativity, and taking risks should be rewarded. I also believe that there is the concept of being our brother's keeper. And I think that there is this concept that says that I need to pay my fair share so that there's no one left behind. And the only way I can do that is by saying that I pay based on my capacity to pay. And so to me, the only system that allows me to pay based on capacity to pay means that it has to be a taxation that is based on my income. And that in and of itself is income tax. I think that we have always run away from it because very rightly so. In the Bahamas, we have this concept that any new tax that is introduced is an additional tax as opposed to the consolidation of inefficient taxes that we replace with an efficient tax that gets us to the right answer. So in the same example I started with in terms of saying the average taxation on goods at the time being near 40% and persons consuming, the person who is earning $100,000 and only paying 8% in taxation, and the person earning $10,000 who's paying 40% in taxation, shows that the have and the have-not divide is never going to close. Because yes, the person who's paying the 8% may be paying more because of the amount of money that he's paying, but he is actually benefiting more from all of the goods and services that are being afforded through the taxation, because ultimately he's paying less of the bill relative to what he consumes, because he's consuming in the same way as another individual. And so when we get to a point of saying that when we look at income tax, it needs to be saying, what is the tax rate and tax revenues that we need to get to? And what is the simplest form of taxation? Now, income tax isn't simple, right?
No.
And it isn't simple for a couple of reasons, right? Firstly, you have to trust the accuracy of the information that people submit. And before you can even trust the accuracy of information, you have to have the information submitted. So in our environment, because we don't have an income tax system, corporate or personal, the reality is we have not been accustomed to filing our financial affairs and being honest with it. Now, I work in a bank, as you said, so I can tell you we are very good at masking our true financial affairs because we go into the institution and say, let me tell them what I think is going to get me the answer that I want from them, as opposed to being fully open, and the bank doesn't have an ability to independently verify it. Whereas in industrialized countries that have moved into the income tax space, you have to file it and you have all of the, I'm going to say, checks and balances that go along with it, meaning your earnings, your employer has to submit certain information as it relates to your payroll. And we have some of that in the Bahamas called national insurance, but we have a ceiling. So it's not on your full earnings, it's really up to the cap and the limit that is sitting there. We have now introduced some of that on businesses because we have it actually in terms of VAT filing. Before, that was what businesses were crying out for. They said, well, we didn't have the accounting systems. We didn't have the mechanism in order to do all this filing. And there was a cry saying, oh, this is unfair. But the truth of the matter is, if you were running a successful business, you telling me you didn't know what your revenues and expenses were? And it had nothing to do with your accounting. And if it was, then you probably weren't running an efficient business in the first place. And you probably had greater leakages than you would ever have actually been aware of. And so we have seen that on the corporate front, the improvement, because now everyone has to file at least quarterly, if not monthly, on their VAT on the corporate side. Individuals don't have to yet do that. And so to get into a full income tax system, it may start on a corporate tax level because we have the foundation already laid and we have an ability to build upon. On the individual side, we still have some more work to be done. But I am fully in favor of tax reform in this country because the three questions I ask is our tax system equitable? We know that the answer is no. Is our tax system raising the revenues necessary for government to meet the obligations that they have? We know the answer is no, because we've been running deficits since inception. And is it competitive, meaning that we actually can compete on the world stage? And we know that answer is no, because we stay getting threatened with blacklisting and the like.
All the time.
So when we argue all of those, our tax system is actually not achieving anything that we wanted to achieve. So they say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, this been broke a long time. I think it's time to fix it.
It's time to fix it. Gowan Bowe, CEO of Fidelity Bank and Trust. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you. You are a blessing to the country with the information that you shared today. Thank you so much, my friend. Until next time, eh?
All righty, man. Always a pleasure.
All right. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black. We will be back after this. I want to talk about investing as well. We'll be back right after that.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
And we're back. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. I hope everybody's doing well, taking care of yourself, living your best life. Don't forget, we are on also streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. You can find us at either spot. Of course, we are always on cable channel 969, so you can listen to us there. Hello, everybody's listening to us through your TV on cable channel 969. If you're listening to us on your TuneIn app, the Guardian Radio app, wherever you are in the world today, it is an honor and a privilege to be chatting with you. Many topics of conversation today. If you're just tuning in, of course, you missed Gowan Bowe. And the question of VAT, like I said, my pharmacist had a question, and I hope she was listening to get your thoughts on it. And so based on what the Prime Minister said, this is what I got from them, that they are looking to target this, right? That indeed the bread, it will go up. It will go from 0 rated to 10%, but that they are saying that they're going to target this revenue difference to those who actually need it. And so that we will see, because that's where now the follow through has to come in. The follow through has to come in. They have done some things that are already showing that their interest is going into the persons or people in need. But this is where we follow. We follow this narrative. We follow this with our eyes and with circumspection, because we need to hold our governments accountable. And an increase in any VAT or decrease, all of this benefits. One thing we heard in the news just now, which I liked, is that Mr. Halkitis, Minister of State for Economics, and why can't I remember the other part? Something Advisory Council, something like that, stated that we will probably stay at 10%. Now, that is great news. I like staying at 10%. Staying at 10% is great. And I think that there's no need to move up any further if revenue can be collected efficiently, effectively, and we are on a trajectory, a very good trajectory to resolving our debt. Questions for the next debate will be this $1 billion difference, all of that good stuff. But let's wait for the debates. But that is something I knew, and I know that many are asking. And of course, messaging from all sides can get confused, and I wanted to make sure that I was clear and that we got as much information as possible. Spoke to many economists, and they all fell back to this conversation there, what I had with Gowan Bowe. Now I want to bring with you, have you guys been following, I do this thing. I did this thing on Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday, whatever day this week, talking about finances, right? The importance of us really tending to our own business, finding a way to get out of the rat race. Don't live in this space where we only could watch and we're not able to grow assets. We're not able to connect with opportunities, because normally opportunities they require $5,000 down. Normally an opportunity requires some big money, what we don't have. And I can't wait till I do my crypto show. Obviously that's not business advice. But anybody who's got Shiba Inu, one texter said that they got 100 million Shiba. Lord God, in the morning. You know what that is? To have 100 million Shiba? Today? How long did you have 100 million Shiba? I was told of an attorney who was just making buku dollars off of her Shiba. So people are doing stuff. We'll have that show sometime next week. But that to me is what is spurred, and I'm excited to have my friend back on. Because I like the idea of touching, right? Like we can really do some things here. So let me bring on that. I don't want to belabor my friend here, DRC Junior Arawak X. How you doing, buddy? Do you have any Shiba on you?
I don't. I'm a companies kind of guy. I believe in, I'm not gonna lie. I understand why people are speculating on these different cryptocurrencies, but there is another way of seeing large returns. And it's the traditional way, and it's investing in high growth, innovative companies.
Slow and steady. Less risk, less volatility, but there is risk.
Of course,
But
with all
something-
investments, there are risks. Even the really super safe ones, even if you keep your money in the bank, if the bank fails, there's risk. So all investments have risk.
You know how unfortunate you have to be, Darcy, if the bank fails, but you got your money in. Like, you have to be the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's. Yeah. So, with all, I say all that to say that traditionally, speaking about wealth, how the really wealthy made money was they made money by getting into early stage companies that early on, and so. That's why there's this whole industry called private equity. That's all they're trying to do is to getting into these that space before the company is big. Because could you imagine buying 10% of Facebook before it was Facebook?
Listen,
hey,
Apple,
exactly.
Tesla.
Exactly. Any of those companies. But by the time they get to the stock market, they're already big companies. So, like, for example, Apple, right? Apple, you could buy an Apple stock now. But is it really going to be a $20 trillion company? Is that? No. So, I mean, it's all of the... I mean, it might double, but I don't see it becoming a $20 trillion company. You can't times by 10. Whereas if you get a company...
And even to get in, even to get on that, to buy a share right now. How many people have that sort of cash to buy just one share?
Exactly.
So it is definitely different, but we really have to decide where to get in. And then that even in the discussion, and I love how you said, okay, if you're just tuning in, DRC Ramming Jr., our Chief Technical Officer joining us from...
To make sure the computers work and the website doesn't crash. That's
but you're smart. You're a businessman too. Don't try and run from it. You're a smart fella. Because one of the things that I like about and why I love the ROX and the project, which is what it's doing, is the understanding of how to get in at the ground floor. The ground floor gives me more leverage, right? Less money in, the potential, the exponential ability of growth if we do well. I'm seeing now with my $25, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm looking at $2,500. Well, that's crazy growth, but I'm just saying
it's only growth of 100 times, which, by the way, sounds crazy for big companies, because big companies, it's really difficult to grow. Like, for example, Apple right now sells, I think it's like 50 million iPhones a quarter, right? To grow 10 times, you'd have to sell 500 million. I mean, that would mean you'd be selling an iPhone to every person on the planet every quarter. I mean, that the math just doesn't make any sense at that point. And so it's while take the two companies that are listed right now, for them to grow 10 times, they have to just work their business plan as you see it. And then for them to grow 100 times, they'd have to, of course, probably come back to the market for more money, because you finance these leaps of growth. So I say all that to say that traditionally how money is made in the world, how people become wealthy, is 4 ways. So either you're born rich, God bless you if you are. Some people, the rest of us, that's not an option.
Coming up.
The second is you have an amazing skill. So, like, think basketball players, doctors, like cardiac surgeons, brain surgeons. They have an amazing skill that somebody will pay them oodles of money to do. That's a very small percentage of people as well. Yeah. The third is if you're a business owner, if you're the founder of a business, it's not easy. It's a different way of getting it, but the potential of becoming wealthy is there. And the fourth is to be an investor. And so it's those last two that we at Arawak support, the investors and the business owners, because they're really intertwined. Because what an investor is doing is he has excess cash that he's looking for a return on. What a business person is doing is they have an opportunity that they see. And how do you bring the two of them together in a way that is regulated so that both can participate in this opportunity? And so what Arawak X does is it allows you to invest. I think we even got it down to low $60.
I'm telling you.
So it's the barrier to entry is gone. So there's no excuse anymore.
And that's what I'm so glad you said. Let's talk about this barrier to entry, right? DRC Raming Jr. joining us, Arawak X, because this, for me, that has always been this issue, right? We live here now in the Bahamas. We're watching NASDAQ, we're watching the NASDAQ 500. We're watching all of these different options here, S&P. We're talking, you watch Kramer and he's like, sell. You're seeing all of this. And then we come to, God bless us, God bless it, BISX, right? We're seeing low moving stocks, little trajectory, little increments. And then there's a question of liquidity. How quickly can we, decide, hey, I want to pull out? Where is really the dividends? If we buy bonds, if we buy into, say, the port, they can probably come and buy back all of what you have so that they can secure their position. So it's kind of different here. Where there's really, our market of investment and getting in isn't as what we see in the world ahead of us, above us. So I like the model that is presented, but the question that I have for you with the model presented by Arawak X that gives me this leverage to get in at the ground floor is what is the hopes of an investor when we talk about, all right, I like what I see. I'm going to wait 5 years on this business idea here. And what are my projections? Am I supposed to see some return? Am I supposed to see growth?
So every company, just like BISX, we are licensed stock exchange. It's called a marketplace license, same license as BISX. And we're focused on a different type of company. So they're focused on a specific type of company. We're focused on high growth, innovative startups. And what that means is, and by the way, startup doesn't just mean you're starting a business. It means that you've structured the company to grow. And so we like to use a team that delivers magic. So this is how we make sure that each company that lists on Arawak X, that comes to the crowd for funding, has growth in mind. Team stands for the executive, advisors, and management. Who's running this thing? Take a really hard look at the people that are running the business, because at the end of the day, business is about people. And if you don't have the right team, it doesn't matter how good the idea is. If it's a medical business and nobody there has done anything medical, it's not going to work. Or it's going to, because at the end of the day, that's the business that it's in. It's a medical business. So you need medical people. You also need business people because, a doctor that's a great surgeon may not necessarily have the skills of, an accountant. But then, like I say, teams of people is what makes business work. Then there's the magic. M stands for our market that is big enough. A stands for access to that market. Can you get in front of those companies? G is that growth of 10 times. So every company that you see on Arawak X is trying to move from where they are right now 10 times. And so the reason being is because the risk is high-ish compared to other investments in the market. But when you're trying to grow 10 times, you just have to say to yourself, you know what? What if these guys are right? What if they do this? Then I make 10 times on my money, at least. And so I think that's a pretty good risk for risk reward type bounce. And then somebody said they want to grow 5,000 10 times. That'd be pretty good. I want to put some money in your company. The I stands for innovative, something innovative. And by the way, speaking of that, I'll be saying that in jest, but I believe that there's someone here in the Bahamas right now with an idea that could be as big as Facebook. I do believe that. Yeah, I believe that as well. It's about finding them, making sure that they're surrounded by the right team, and then trying to remove as much barriers as possible, unshackling them so that they can run into international business. So
hold on, DRC, let me actually just on that, what you're saying. You're calling for, are you guys like an incubator even in and of yourself with this team?
We're not quite an incubator. So incubators kind of handhold the business. We set up the environment through rules based on our experience as management consultants. So for folks at home that don't know what a management consultant is, a management consultant is someone that works with a business, the executives in a business, the ownership in the business, the shareholders in the business, to make sure that it's structured properly for growth. And so that could mean many things. Oftentimes, in our little town, it means helping them with sales, because the first thing you can do as a business is if you double your sales and keep your expenses the same, you solve most of your problems. Not all of your problems, but you solve most of them. So we worked a lot with sales and marketing, and if you've been following ROACX, you know we're pretty good at that stuff. So
very good.
Yeah. So in our experience working with management consultants, we got to see a lot of business models and a lot of people and companies and the way that they were structured. And the ones that were successful were structured a certain way. And that's what that C in MAGIC stands for, that corporate governance, making sure that the companies are structured in a way so that you are able to avoid many of the pitfalls. Yeah, the tons and tons of ways to die in a business. There are tons and tons of ways to succeed, but there are also some really known things to prevent you from dying. I see a question here. $16 is recurring.
Yeah.
No, it's you buy those shares and those are yours at that price, and you can buy as many of them as you want until it's closed, and then you'd have to wait until it goes on a secondary market.
So far, finish that thought there, DRC Jr. If you're just tuning in, DRC Ramming Jr., RWACX Chief Technical Officer, but actually one of the, just a brilliant young man as well. Business, very much has a sharp business acumen and smarter than a lot of people I know. So DRC, with regard to just on the prospect of the companies, I know right now, I know we have 2 live companies.
Yes.
And that's Red Lobster, Pinnacle franchise brand, right?
Which, by the way, yesterday passed its minimum. So there will be a Red Lobster in the Bahamas.
What? Hold on, but it's not too late, right? Because I didn't sign up.
So it's not too late to get in, but so they've hit their minimum and they're going up to their maximum. So you can still get in there. But it's
24 days left.
Yeah, or until it hits the maximum. So when it hits the maximum, because it's equity, they don't want to sell any more of those shares. They don't want to give up any more of the company. That's kind of when we cut it off.
Yeah. Well, better stop. As good people say, stop slapping up Nahaja and get on it. And then, of course, we also have something. I think this next one, this Bahamas. What is it?
Groove. I think they rebranded themselves as Groove. So. Yeah.
And they're really a bit about that company, because
they're a really cool company. It's a augmented reality. There's a difference. Tours. So you'll be able to go downtown, other places, sign up for a tour on your phone, and then kind of like Pokemon Go, you'll be able to follow an avatar as it kind of walks you downtown. And it'll be able to, like, say it's a history tour, and you'll be able to do that. So that's one aspect. They have global designs. So, it's that, and they're trying to make it an open platform so that creatives can create their own tours and monetize them.
Let me tell you why I really like that idea. And I think that is just as much as I love the Red Lobster one as well, right? And I know that
Red Lobster feeds the belly. That one feeds the mind.
Yeah, the mind. And that is the way of tours, right? We know people travel via their phone and their apps. They want to make. If you ever play Pokemon Go, you understand how addictive that is, even in and of itself. But the augmented tour, so you no longer need that tour guide. You pay your fee. Any guest, any visitor, anywhere in the world now says, hey, let me just spend this couple dollars and I can walk downtown with my tour guide. It is going to be revolutionary for how we do touring. I don't know who the company owners are, but tell them I very much love this idea
Well, the principal, the CEO is Marcian Cash. So you can go on arawakx.com, and when you look at these companies, it gives you all of the information that you need to know. We have a lot of finance people at the firm, so we make sure to give there's a full disclosure of all the information that you need to invest. And so if you are a beginner at investing, buy a couple shares. If you're more experienced, you'll still be able to, see all of your projections, financials, et cetera, et cetera. So it's, we tried to make it super user friendly, but also you can go as in depth into the company as possible for you to make an investment decision. So it's, which is not easy to do, by the way. To not overcomplicate it, but make sure that there's enough information. If you want to do the deep dive, you can.
And so we're able to see future forecasts. What are they projecting for the next 4 or 5 years?
I don't know if anybody 4 or 5 year projections after COVID. I mean, everybody, who knows what's going to happen in 18 months? I mean, that's right. That's right. Who knows? I mean, anyway, that's. Yeah.
And then you're so right on it. And I think some of the interesting things about why I love, and again, Arawak X, DRC Raming Jr. And this is, DRC, this is probably your 4th, 5th time on the show. And I keep on saying, we need to do this longer and more, is because we have, right now, it's still a challenge for people to buy stocks. If you want to, let's just say, man, listen, I don't necessarily want a middleman. I don't want a manager. I've got an extra $400, $500. I just want to buy some shares in company X. We have challenges doing that, right? You can't just.
Well, you can with us, and the company's listed on Arawak X. So we actually we make our money. We don't make our money off of fees for the investor. We make our money off from the companies. The companies kind of pay us for our services, and so. When you buy that $16 share, that's $16 worth of equity you purchase. And so it's like I say, we've done 2. One is successful. The other one, we expect to be successful within the next couple of days. On Monday, we're launching a new company. Really? So, yeah, I can say, I'm only allowed to say certain things before companies are listed. I will say that this one is led by 2 wonderfully intelligent, beautiful women that are passionate about what they do. And you guys are going to be really excited because it's in a space that our country has been talking about for a very long time that we need to be in. And so, it's a really cool company, company.
Well, and, you're smiling ear to ear, DRC. So
it's really cool. It's like, I mean, like, hey, I mean, I love business. This is why I'm doing this. This is why the team at Arawak X is doing this, because we love business and we love helping entrepreneurs. We love making sure that investments are well structured. And, so it kind of combines our passion for business and then finance. And then, of course, technology, which every day I wake up and I'm really happy to be doing what I do. Yeah.
We can tell it too. Something here, if for someone who wants to get their business, who believes that their business, needs this sort of support and financing, we need the startup help. What would you say to them? What sort of preparation should they come with? What would you say to a business owner?
I would actually say right now, go and buy a couple of shares in one of these companies to learn the process from the investor side. Because when you go to and look for equity, you have to remember that you're making a sales pitch to investors. And so, when you come in, oftentimes we have a lot of business people, they come in and they start talking about their business and their things. That's really nice. That's your sales pitch for your customers. But for an investor, he's interested in a return on his investment. So that means you need to make sure that the way you talk about your business is there so that he can see a return on his investment. That's what he cares about. And so it's important that you understand that. And the best way to understand that is to have been an investor in somebody else's business. And so what happens is when you do that, then you'll properly understand, sitting across the table now in your own business, what do you need to do and what high barriers you need to go? Because these are not just, so it's not easy to list on ArrowACX. It takes, even if you're well prepared, 3 to 6 months. And that's with knowing everything, and you get everything. Our responsibility as a marketplace is to protect the investor. And so it's not, we can't just let anybody list. But if you have the mind to say, okay, I'm going to seek investment from the community, and I'm willing to, I understand that that's not just free money. I have rights and responsibilities to these investors, because when I invest, want someone to take care of my, my investment. So it's that duality. And often people just think about, I'm in this business, I'm going to do this. Or a lot of Bahamians, they oftentimes we hear people talk about, it's my company and da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, but you can't get to where you're going without investment. And so you need to understand what makes the investor work. And it's, I see someone make a sales pitch to investor.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Sales pitches are different. Me saying to you, come buy this wonderful hot dog is very different than me saying, I have a hot dog stand, come invest in my hot dog stand, because you're going to see a return. One, you get a hot dog that might be very good, and the other, you get a return on your money, which are two different things. So that's what I mean. There's a distinction. And these are some great questions that I'm seeing.
And someone asked, and she also asked, is there anyone who can help? Do you guys have someone who can help me with that pitch? Right?
Yeah. So we work with a community of business developers. And so if, we're business people too. So we don't actually help in-house, but we will help direct you to someone that can help you. We kind of take a business across the finish line. So they already have their product, they already have their pitch deck, they already have their story. And we, spruce you up so that you can do the very public dance of crowdfunding, because it is a very public experience. And so that means you have to know what your business, you have to know your customers, you have to be a business person of a certain level to get there. And I say all that to say that even if you're not a business person at that level, still contact us. We will make sure to get you in the pipeline. We are business people too. Nobody starts off knowing any of this stuff. Not as an investor, not as a business person. You have to be. You have to go through a process like crowdfunding to get these kinds of skills. And so,
I think if you're just tuning in, Diasi Raming Jr., CTO.
I don't want the CFO job. That's a job.
I don't want that job. Nobody should want that job, but the CFO.
Hey, accountants love it.
It takes a certain special someone.
Yeah,
to want
that's why they're teams. Like I say, that's why we're teams. We're built in teams. I'm not bent that way.
If you're just tuning in, ArrowACX here again, and really wanting us to push towards becoming more investors in Bahamian businesses, guys. Really thinking knowing that is the way that we move the country forward, not waiting for government intervention. We are the stimulus. We are the funds.
Let me add to that. So Red Lobster, by hitting its minimum, is going to hire 180 people.
Wow.
So that's 180 people that are not going to be in need of social help. And so
that's huge.
Companies are about. Properly structured, properly funded companies hire people. They go and they pay taxes. And once you pay those taxes, then government services can run. If we do this right and get enough companies, maybe even government salaries and stuff will go up. And so it's really important that we understand the linkage between business that is going after opportunity and economic development. The two come together. And so there's a lot of positive spin-offs that are going to happen from when these companies get funded.
DRC, and I think you hit on it so perfectly there. The linkages, right? And what we want is private sector growth. We want more Bahamians to begin to experience the financial success and the capitalization of their business, where it's been a challenge before. And what you're saying, DRC, with our WAC-X is that you create the space, the platform to crowdfund, the crowdsource. And I, as an investor now, or someone, I'm just not giving where you would have the, what was the name of the crowdfunding app back in the day? Website. The one in the States. What's the name of the big one?
The Kickstarter or GoFundMe?
Kickstarter.
Okay.
Yeah, Kickstarter. Where Kickstarter was really, I just appreciate the fact that you make great wallets, man. I'm going to help you make great wallets. And we had no equity.
It's funny that you bring that up. You know what the famous product on Kickstarter was?
What was
that created equity crowdfunding? Oculus. And
yes,
Oculus,
the goggles.
The goggles, yes. And this is so timely for the news because these people, they've said, oh my God, virtual reality. This is going to be the coolest thing. Let me get some of these goggles. They took the product, they made the product, and then Facebook went and bought them for $1 billion. And then today, Facebook just revamped what they're doing. They're moving completely into that space. Now, imagine if you own shares in that company.
Imagine
how much money you would have made even when Facebook bought it. I mean, you would have went from like, oh yeah, I threw my $100 in and thank you for my $10,000 check. That's the kind of thing. And so that's what really one of the key catalyst events that spurred this equity crowdfunding movement is that you get into that company early, and even if a giant company like Facebook swallows up the company, you're going to see a nice return on your investment.
Yeah. And so that's what we love, right? That nice return on the investment. Do you guys believe when you look at this DRC and you look at the businesses that you're putting on the platform, the goal of our WAC-X is to put companies on the platform that you truly believe, based on your team, based on the magic of the team, that will be.
So there's something. So we do not make a judgment on the business idea. The market makes the judgment on the business idea.
Okay.
We make sure that it is structured properly so that it's that team with magic. Because even Facebook and companies like Apple and Microsoft were dumb ideas to a lot of people. And so, because it was new. So we can't, every idea doesn't click to everyone. That's just not how visions and ideas work.
Right.
So, but you can make sure that the structure around it fits that mold so that if it is a good idea, if the market does say, yes, we're ready for this, you can get a return on your investment. And so that's why you'll see at all times, we try to reserve judgment from the idea itself, because you, the crowd, and you, the investor, and you, the business community, will make that judgment. And that's a personal judgment. So that's not something that any one person can do. Because what you'll find is if we start making those judgment calls, our own personal biases will come out. Like, for example, I'm a tech guy, so like anything tech is wonderful. I am not into some of these businesses, so that means that they can't ever be listed. That would be ridiculous, right? So it's we don't judge the idea. You judge the idea. We make sure that the idea is structured.
I love it. Someone asked, does the investors include banks and land developers?
So the investors can include banks and land developers, yes. So so one of the big things about our company is an idea called financial inclusion. And what that means is that, and this is maybe a controversial thought, the rich should get richer, the middle class should get richer, and the poor should get richer. It's not distribution of wealth. No, you put in what you put in, and you should see a return on what you put in at every level. Yeah. And the distinction is, just because you got $25, just because you got $16, doesn't mean you're not included. So one of the things we want to do with this is a tool for economic growth. As the economy grows, everybody should grow. Everybody should be wealthier. And I know that makes some people uncomfortable. People like the idea of redistributing wealth. That's not how capitalism works. Capitalism is not about redistribution. Capitalism is about growing the pie so that everybody has a little bit bigger of a slice, no matter where you are.
No, and I like that too. But I always say, don't watch the other person's money. Just watch yours. Multiply yours in your space, and don't get caught up in trying to figure out how to reduce somebody else's pie.
And you'll live a happier life because of it.
Yeah.
Too.
Don't watch other people. Just stop watching.
Yeah.
Someone asks, what if you don't have a bill in your name? How can you become an investor?
So you don't need a bill in your name. We the central bank governor recently got rid of that requirement.
That's great. That's great. Actually,
for financial inclusion. I mean, it was amazing. So we immediately adopted that policy, wrote that into our policies and procedures. And so just go right on the website. You should be able to do it within 5 minutes. If you have tons of money, we're going to ask you for a little bit more documents. Sorry, that's just how it is. Yeah, KYC goes up the more money, the more you want to invest. But outside of that, it's super simple. We revamped the whole process. If you came to us at the early days, there were tons and tons of forms. We worked with our regulators. We worked with industry professionals to streamline that down into a single 5-minute form. You are going to need, it is financial services, so you still are going to need IDs and fill out some forms. But it's like I say, 5 minutes. And you just click start investing. So the folks at home, you click that start investing and take it to that page, and boom, takes you about 5 minutes. You click let's go, and then the form will load, and then you'll see some places to upload documents, etc. It's actually we tried to make it super simple. So I see the person in the studio. Click I'm a Bahamian. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you just fill out those forms, and then it's going to ask you to upload 2 documents, and that's it. Done. Scroll to the bottom, click submit, and the compliance folk will get back to you with your login information, and then you can start investing.
Yeah, and it seems pretty straightforward. And I've already gone through it, so I've started. I kind of started in some way, shape, or form. So, but
the website is arawakx.com. arawakx.com. You should be able to do that. By the way, I'm loving these comments, folks, because I'm trying to make sure this stays interactive.
Yeah, and folks, really, and I appreciate everyone who is tuning in with regard to this, because I want more people to actually really dive in and really look at the opportunities here and investing locally as you watch the rest of the world go crazy. Like I said, I got friends who are living their best life, DRC, with Sheba, right? They're living their best life. I just am afraid of when to get out. I can't pay enough attention on that stuff.
I am, like I say, I believe in companies. I believe in things that I can touch. I don't wear much jewelry, because even like gold and stuff like that, I don't view as an investment. Some people view it as like an investment.
Yeah.
I like things that I like innovative companies. So if this thing if they happen to be right, I'm going to be on the big upside. That's where that's my risk profile, is why I'm in this kind of business. But like all investments, people have to make sure that they understand the risk and they understand their personal risk profile. I see something, how tax filed on investments. You have to file your taxes. So, if you're, so how are they filed? If you're
get your TIN number. Get your TIN number.
You're going to have to consult your tax attorney on that stuff. It's so different depending on what country and what citizen you are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not an easy question to answer. That's why they have.
Persons are asking about security on the site. How safe is it?
How safe is it? So we have the same people that are responsible for keeping the U.S. government's information safe as consultants working with us. So it's super, super safe. It's as safe as you can be on the internet. Do they get hacked? Yes. But I doubt a government is coming to hack your personal information on this site. But it's as safe as industry standards allow.
Yeah. DRC, again, finally, before I let you go, let folks know how they can contact you, how they can, if they want to get their company on the site, and just to get started, like you said.
So go to rwacx.com. If you're a company, you click that Raise Capital button. It's a different process. Obviously, companies are vetted completely differently than individuals. If you're an individual, you go and you click Start Investing or I'm an investor. And go through that process. We've tried to make both processes super simple. Like I said, if you're just joining us, our job is to link properly structured companies and ideas up with investors in the crowd. We don't make that decision. The investors make that decision themselves. They buy directly into the company. We just manage the marketplace where that happens over the rules. And so, the companies, the team that delivers magic is what's going to make it work or not. We just make sure that it happens in a relatively structured way.
All right. DRC, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. DRC Raman Jr., RWAC. Thanks so much, buddy. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja, Black Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, I also want to hit you up with something that Mia Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, said. But special thanks to RWAC. Invest, 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 invest. Thanks, DRC. Everyone, take care. Wait, don't take care. I'll be right back after this.
To those affected by a hurricane, the damage is far greater than the eye can see. It's the pain of experiencing damage to your home. But there are people right here that can help. We're CG Atlantic General. We're your neighbors. We live here and work here too. We're always ready to answer calls and to process your claims as quickly as possible. So when a storm turns your life upside down, we're here to turn it around. CG Atlantic General. Good like that. Security and General Insurance Company Limited, trading as CG Atlantic General. Contact a CG Atlantic General broker today.
You have a new text message from Scotia.
Scotiabank is adding text messaging to its communication channels to keep customers updated in quicker and safer ways. As of November 4th, Scotiabank will be using text messaging to provide notifications on the minimum payment required for your credit card and due dates. Customers may continue to access their credit card statements on Scotia Online or through our mobile banking app. Learn more by contacting customer care-bahamas at scotiabank.com or call 356-1697.
Baja sugar, sugar, let's get sugary. Softer, smoother, and amazing skin. Oh, Baja sugar, sugar, we're the sugar ladies, giving you skin soft as a baby's. Goodbye hair, we'll take good care of you.
Come visit us at Baja Retreat Spa on East Bay Street. Contact us at 323-6711 or visit us online at www.baharetreat.com.
We are working to protect our country, our people, and our livelihoods so that we can move forward. The vaccine is safe. The vaccine is easy. The vaccine is essential for our recovery. If we want to rebuild our economy, if we want to get back to our jobs, if we want to get back to our lives, our families, we must do this together.
What does Christmas mean to you? What about the joy and satisfaction you get in starting the home projects you've wanted to do all year? CIBC First Caribbean helps you make your Christmas wishes come true with easy and flexible financing on personal loans. Apply online and smile all the way this holiday season. Visit CIBCFCIB.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
We're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Listen, it was a very informative show so far. We had Gowan Bowen talking about VAT. What is this real deal with VAT? If you missed any part of it, please don't forget, go to our Facebook page and our YouTube page, and you can always watch it there. Subscribe. You'll never miss a show. Of course, you can always go to the Guardian website. You can go ahead and I don't know. I think we still have we do the podcasting of the shows, but quickly you can always go to the YouTube and Facebook channels. Something I wanted to share with you guys before we go, and we're almost out of time. Mia Motley, and it was interesting because this was something that in the papers today, Bank of the Bahamas chair, I think, told in the business section, banks not betting against the economy. And this was in response to the Prime Minister's announcement or statement that, hey, listen, the liquidity is there within the banks, but we're not getting any sort of, any monies out of the banks. Curiously enough, this is in our newspaper today, but yesterday, Mia Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, had some concerns of her own, and this is the news report, and let's just get to it.
Barbados Prime Minister Mia Motley says limited access to financial capital is a growing problem there. She says the appetite for banks there to take risks has to change, suggesting that her government will consider legislation if banks continue to fail to allow money to work for development. She told a business luncheon in Bridgetown Wednesday that banks should stop locking down money.
But let us talk straight. Banks are intended to be in the business of financial intermediation, not security. If I wanted a watchman for my money, I would go and hire a security guard. But if we want money to work for the financial services sector and for development, then we need to appreciate that a loan-to-deposit ratio of 55%, when the developed world has ratios of 80%, tells me that we have people here who are watching people's money rather than working people's money. It cannot continue.
Motley also railed against the rising imposition of fees on accounts.
Notion that people can be paid fees or have to pay fees for minimum deposits, but poor people can keep $2 in a bank now. Or rich people with large deposits now have to pay or are being asked to pay fees because you have a deposit that is over 10 million or 20 million. An act that will hurt, in particular, the credit union movement, whose deposits are lodged into the banking sector, or anyone, even lawyers with clients' accounts.
The Barbados Prime Minister has threatened to impose adequate legislation on the issue if the banks do not get it right.
It cannot be. And at the very time that we are asking you as a private sector, and we're asking Barbadians as individuals to think outside of the box, it cannot be that we are going to sit idly by and allow persons to abandon their purpose of financial intermediation and to go into the business of security. Now, I'm not meaning to be invidious. I'm not meaning to be offensive in any way. But I don't know how many more times to say it. And therefore, I have advised the governor of the central bank that if we don't get it right, then the government will legislate because it is not fair to the people or the businesses in this nation.
Oh, Mia Motley. Oh, Lord, can I just meet Mia? What a time. Mia Motley just said what she needed to say and what we've been wanting someone to say to our banks for the longest. Now, I tell you, the interesting thing about this, of course, is that in today's paper, off of the heels of what the Prime Minister shared when he talked about liquidity of the markets. And I'm running out of time. He mentioned high domestic liquidity and low usage. Yeah. The borrowing legacy of the former government is further, blah, 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 right? Despite billions of Bahamian dollars sitting in banks, the former administration, opted to borrow approximately $2 billion of 64% of all government borrowings in foreign currency loans over the recent fiscal year. And fortunately, with visibly poor fiscal, this is confidence in the Bahamian government weakened in international markets, and our government bonds are trading at distressed levels, 5 notches below the level indicated by our credit ratings. That has resulted in increased burden and interest on our payments. We need our domestic financial institutions to show faith in the economy by participating significantly in the domestic financial market and not just lend money to the government and its entities, but to make loans to Bahamian firms to allow them to invest and grow. That was what the Prime Minister said yesterday. Today in the paper, it says banks not betting against the economy. And yesterday, Mia Motley having the same sort of discussion. We need to dig in deeper on this because there is a lot of liquidity. Top bankers yesterday rejected the Prime Minister's assertion that they are betting against the Bahamas' economy. Kenrick Brathwaite, Bank of the Bahamas' managing director, denied to the Tribune Business that the commercial banks have lost confidence in this nation's economic prospects. The Prime Minister sought to further, and we'll go into that. I'm running out of time. But needless to say, Mia Motley for the win. And it's time for us to stand up and say, come on now, banks. We paying fees? What you doing? It's something else. All right, everybody. I tell you, we got to meet Mia Motley. Can we get Mia Motley on the Hit Back? I'm going to work on that. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Everyone have a great day. See you tomorrow. We're out.